games, not just domestically, but in Europe as well. And we'll be back with all the reaction to those matches tomorrow. Gabby Bonlahor, of course, over in Germany. As Aston Villa go in against Leipzig, and I strongly fancy Villa to get a result there, Simon. I do hope they do, because there's something about Villa, and I know you agree with me. You were a big fan of Doug Ellis, as was I.
I was.
And I love seeing them back in there. I know the phrase is often used, and it's overused, Simon, where they belong. But I actually do think Villa belong there.
But I also like them as a team. I like the way they play. I like a lot of their players. I think they've got some very good players in that side. And I think they're exciting to watch. So I want them to be successful because I admired them when I grew up as a kid. And often in my Bay, I used to bump into Gordon Cowans and people like that who were part of that great Villa side of the early 80s. And then you look at them as scale, and obviously my affection for Doug doesn't seem to be replicated by Martin Keown, but judged upon my reading of his book recently where he talks about Doug Ellis.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I hope they do well. I hope all English clubs do well in the Champions League.
Yeah. Is there a danger they could fall into the trap Newcastle fell into? And it all looked great and everybody was very excited and came to nothing because the rules stopped them.
Well, there's always a danger, isn't there, that can manifest itself. And that's the problem with PSR. It doesn't allow the clubs that have the means to move forward and to compete with the status quo. And that is the challenge that PSR does not address, in fact, compounds.
Yeah. We finished today with this Club World Cup. You know something, I'll be honest before we know it. Yes. Infantino is thrilled with it all, and we know we've got two English competitors, participants in it.
Yep.
Manchester City and Chelsea are in it. The most lucrative domestic tournament. I wonder if it's set to become the most coveted across the board as well, because when it comes to it, if you're an owner, you can hardly say no to this, can you? DAZN are going to cover it. We know that.
Yeah.
It's understood Manchester City and Chelsea are in line for earning up to 60 million quid each just for taking part in it.
They all are.
That's just for taking part, Simon.
Yeah.
If you go in and win the thing,
it's about 130 million.
It's about 130 million plus.
Same as Champions League. I mean, we're a bit schizophrenic on this show because we've spent the last 2 weeks pummeling this tournament, telling it doesn't have any broadcast deals and it has no value. The value of this tournament for the clubs in and of itself. You remember in the summer, Ancelotti popped up with his particular brand of observation about Real Madrid wouldn't be playing in it because they get X amount per game, and boom, in about 15 minutes he put another statement out saying, of course we'll be there. Because I think Perez probably, or someone within Real Madrid said, we are going to this tournament, it's worth 130 million quid if we win it. It is part and parcel. The finances are significant. The tournament is yet to be determined whether it'll be significant. It'll be interesting to see how the governance of football evolves, because there's a battle, there's a landscape battle going on in football, whether it's FIFA's jurisdiction, where UEFA sit in the equation, where the individual federations. My view is that we're morphing into European Super Leagues and the challenges that will come again. That's what I believe will happen further down the pike. But in this instance, there's a lot of money available. The players will be big beneficiaries of it, because a significant proportion of this money will land with the players.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. So much about sport now is driven by tournaments, and so much of tournaments are motivated by the financials.
For sure, but does prize money supersede tradition? I mean, at any stage, a football club here in England would love to win the FA Cup.
Sure.
Of course they would. Wonderful tournament to win. Prize money for winning it, 2 million.
Yeah.
What would you rather win?
Both.
The Club World Cup, the Club World Cup or the FA Cup? 2 million for winning the FA Cup.
Well, if I was owning Crystal Palace, I'd be
winning.
delighted to be in the World Club Championships, and the qualification for that would be very unlikely. It depends upon your club. I mean, ultimately, would you like to win the inaugural 32-team FIFA World Club Championship? You probably would, because if it goes on to be something of great significance, like the Champions League has become, because let's not forget the Champions League started with the European Cup, which was a meaningful tournament based upon actual winners participating in it, rather than everybody else that was participants and not that many champions in there. And that's morphed into something. So I think that it shouldn't be an either or.
I get that.
What clubs should be able to do?
Surely it's the FA Cup.
Well, is it now? I mean, I have great value of the FA Cup, and you're probably right. Today, the FA Cup has more prestige around the world. But that doesn't mean in the future that will continue to be the case. I would hope that we retain value in it. I would hope that the constant messaging is not to decry and to deride the FA Cup and to pitch it against the powerhouses of the Premier League and the Champions League, to keep its integral value. But by the same token, the winning the World Club Championship right now, we don't know this tournament. We don't. It doesn't look like it's liked. It doesn't look like it's liked because of the battle about player welfare and the timing of the schedule.
Exactly.
If these clubs were allowed to have bigger squads to be able to compete in these tournaments, the argument would be a little bit less prevalent. I think there's merit in this tournament. There's economic benefit in it, and we'll see how it plays out in the longer term. But if you're talking to an Englishman who owned a football club that would probably never going to feature in the FIFA World Club Champions, I'm going to turn around and say I would like the FA Cup.
There you go.
But, I wonder.
And I knew you would.
Well, of course you probably would.
Because you're a traditionalist.
But if I was owning Manchester United, or hang on a second, let's think about it. If I'm a Yank owning an English football club, with due respect, what am I about? What have I invested in? I've invested in the profile and prestige of the Premier League. The FA Cup comes hand in hand with that. But I'll have the FIFA World Club Championship because that puts me right at the top of the tree in the eyes of the marketing world, because I'm owning a football club to both win football matches and to make money.
Okay. So it's 130 million if you win the Club World Cup, 2 million if they win the FA Cup. But we'll see if either Chelsea or Manchester City come out on top if they can win the big one in the summer. And I mean by the big one, the Club World Cup, with all the riches that go with it. Bit of breaking news this lunchtime, Simon. A club close to your heart, Millwall, have just confirmed a mutual decision has been reached with Neil Harris to step down from his role as head coach following Millwall's trip to Middlesbrough on Saturday. Lions chairman James Berylson says, at the start of 2024 we found ourselves in a tough spot. Neil came in and along with his coaching staff galvanised the squad. Through action and leadership, he led Millwall on a great run of form, ensuring our return to the Championship this season. After discussions with Neil in recent days, he felt it was the right time to step down from the role following the Middlesbrough game, and I have accepted this decision.
It's interesting. Hopefully that will spark an enormous decline in Millwall, and they'll end up in League Two where they belong.
You don't honestly mean that, do you?
I most certainly do.
So Millwall now in the business of looking for a new coach, because Neil Harris, of course, long time associated with the football club as a former player and manager. Millwall have just confirmed that it's goodbye to Neil Harris, and they will be going into the market to see who they can appoint after that. Coming up, Messrs Goldstein and Hawksby, because they will take you through, amongst other things, Hawksby and Jacobs, they will take you through the Darts Championship, the talkSPORT Darts Championship, featuring some of the great and the good from here in talkSPORT. I finished with Johnny the Decorator, who's interrupted his painting and decorating this lunchtime to send us this message. Jim Simon wondering, are you doing Christmas cards again this year? I've still got the one on the mantelpiece that you sent me last year, still up, still being displayed, but I'd love a new one. I don't know if we are we?
I don't know, are we?
Apparently not.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.